On February 10, 2025, President Donald Trump implemented a sweeping 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum, marking a significant escalation in U.S. trade policy and impacting global trade dynamics, particularly with major suppliers such as Canada and Mexico. This announcement, made during Trump's flight to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, is part of his broader strategy aimed at protecting American jobs and industries. Tariff implementation. Trump's declaration was clear and emphatic: any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff, he stated, extending this policy to aluminum imports as well. This action continues the aggressive trade stance from Trump's first term, where similar tariffs were previously imposed. The current tariffs are expected to raise costs for various industries, including automotive and beverage sectors, potentially leading to increased prices for consumers. Economic impact. The immediate economic ramifications were visible in the stock market. Shares of U.S. steel companies surged as the market anticipated a boost in domestic production due to diminished foreign competition. For instance, shares of Cleveland-Cliffs rose sharply, reflecting investor optimism about increased demand for U.S. steel. Conversely, South Korean steelmakers saw significant declines in their stock prices, as South Korea is a major exporter of steel to the U.S. Economic analysts predict that these tariffs will lead to cost increases in sectors reliant on steel and aluminum, which may in turn drive inflation higher as businesses pass on these costs to consumers. The fear of inflation was echoed in consumer sentiment surveys, which indicated growing concerns about the economic impact of tariffs. Reciprocal tariffs. In his announcement, Trump hinted at the introduction of reciprocal tariffs in the near future, which would impose duties on countries that have levied tariffs on U.S. goods. "If they charge us, we charge them," Trump asserted, signaling a potential escalation in trade tensions. This approach aims to create a more balanced trade environment, according to the administration. Global reactions. The global response to Trump's tariff announcement was swift and mostly negative. Canadian officials expressed concerns about the interconnectedness of the U.S. and Canadian economies, warning that these tariffs could jeopardize jobs on both sides of the border. The European Union also criticized the tariffs, stating there was no justification for such measures and indicating readiness to respond in defense of its economic interests. South Korea's acting president convened a meeting with trade officials to assess the potential impact of the tariffs on its steel industry, highlighting the concern among major trading partners regarding the U.S. decision. With South Korea accounting for approximately 14% of its global steel exports to the U.S., the tariffs are expected to have a significant economic impact. Historical context. This latest tariff announcement follows a pattern from Trump's previous administration, where tariffs were used as leverage in negotiations. However, the timing of this announcement marks a notable difference, as these tariffs have been introduced earlier in Trump's current term than in his previous presidency. The earlier imposition suggests a more confrontational approach to trade from the outset of his administration. Summary. In summary, Trump's announcement of a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports signifies a pivotal moment in U.S. trade policy, with far-reaching implications for both domestic industries and international relations, especially with Canada, Mexico, and the EU. As the situation unfolds, the global trading landscape is poised for further developments, particularly in response to potential reciprocal tariffs and the broader economic consequences of these trade measures. 1. Misconception about tariffs and jobs. One counterintuitive aspect of Trump's tariff announcement is the common belief that tariffs will always protect domestic jobs. While tariffs on steel and aluminum might benefit certain U.S. manufacturers by reducing foreign competition, they can also lead to higher prices for consumers and increased costs for industries that rely on these materials, such as automotive and beverage sectors. This could potentially result in job losses in those sectors, countering the intended effect of protecting jobs. 2. Global trade dynamics and retaliation. Another surprising point is the potential for escalation in trade wars. While tariffs are intended to create a favorable trade balance, they often provoke retaliatory measures from affected countries.
For instance, South Korea and Canada.
Major suppliers of steel and aluminum to the U.S. reacted negatively to the tariff announcement, indicating possible harm to U.S. businesses that rely on imports, which could lead to a cycle of retaliatory tariffs that further complicates global trade relationships.
3. Short-term versus long-term effects. There's a counterintuitive temporal aspect to consider.
In the short term, U.S. steel companies may experience stock price increases and heightened domestic production due to reduced competition. However, in the long run, sustained tariffs can lead to inefficiencies in the domestic market, higher prices for consumers, and possibly a decrease in innovation and competitiveness. This paradox highlights the complexity of tariff impacts over different time horizons.
For public sentiment and economic perception, despite Trump's assertions that tariffs will boost the economy, public sentiment may not align with this view. Surveys indicate that many Americans are concerned about inflation rising due to tariffs, potentially leading to a decrease in consumer confidence and spending. This reaction can be counterintuitive, as one might expect that protective measures would be universally supported by the populace when they are framed as job savers. 5. Interconnected economies. The interconnected nature of the U.S. and Canadian economies is often underestimated. Canadian officials have pointed out that many U.S. jobs are directly tied to the import of Canadian steel and aluminum. This highlights a counterintuitive reality. While the tariffs are designed to protect U.S. industries, they may inadvertently jeopardize jobs in the U.S. that depend on cross-border trade, illustrating how isolated economic policies can have broad repercussions. 6. Market reactions. The immediate market reactions to tariff announcements can be counterintuitive. While one might expect all related companies, including those negatively impacted by higher costs, to suffer, the initial surge in U.S. steel company stocks suggests an optimistic view of domestic production capacity. However, this does not account for the potential negative impacts on companies in other sectors which may suffer from increased raw material costs and reduced competitiveness. 7. Tariff exemptions and alliances. The notion that allies will be exempt from tariffs is often taken for granted. In previous tariff implementations, countries like Australia received exemptions, but there is no guarantee that similar favors will be granted this time. This uncertainty can lead to unexpected alliances or tensions, as countries may feel compelled to negotiate or retaliate based on their perceived treatment by the U.S., complicating international relations. 8. Economic nationalism versus globalization. Trump's approach reflects a resurgence of economic nationalism, which many may see as a straightforward solution to trade imbalances. However, this can be counterintuitive, as it contrasts sharply with the prevailing trend towards globalization. The push for tariffs could alienate traditional allies and disrupt global supply chains, leading to unintended economic consequences that undermine the very goals of job creation and economic growth. 9. Consumer behavior. It may seem logical to assume that consumers will support tariffs that protect domestic jobs. However, as prices rise due to tariffs, consumers may shift their purchasing behavior away from affected goods, ultimately harming the economy. This shift could lead to decreased demand for U.S. products that rely on steel and aluminum, illustrating how tariffs can have a paradoxical effect on the very industries they aim to protect. 10. Political ramifications. While Trump's tariff policy is framed as a means to bolster American industry, the political ramifications could be counterintuitive. The backlash from both domestic industries reliant on imported materials and international partners could result in political pressure against such measures, potentially hindering Trump's broader economic agenda and leading to political divisions even within his base. These counterintuitive aspects highlight the complexity of trade policies and their multifaceted impacts on the economy, consumer behavior, and international relations. The recent announcement by President Donald Trump regarding the implementation of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum marks a pivotal moment in U.S. trade policy, with significant implications for both domestic and international markets. While much of the media coverage has focused on the immediate economic repercussions, there are several crucial aspects of the announcement that may be overlooked yet hold substantial significance.
1. Long-term economic strategy versus short-term gains.
One critical point often missed in discussions of tariffs is the distinction between short-term economic boosts and long-term strategic planning.
While domestic steel companies may see an immediate uptick in stock prices due to reduced foreign competition, this could lead to complacency in innovation and efficiency. Overprotection through tariffs may shield U.S. industries from necessary competitive pressures, ultimately stunting growth and leading to inefficiencies. For instance, if companies face less incentive to innovate or reduce costs because of artificially inflated prices, this could hinder the U.S. steel industry's global competitiveness in the long run. 2. Reciprocal tariff strategy. The announcement of potential reciprocal tariffs is a tactic that may not receive the attention it warrants. Trump's statement that if they charge us, we charge them reflects a broader strategy of leveraging tariffs as a tool for negotiation. This approach could escalate into a cycle of retaliatory tariffs, leading to a trade war that could affect a wide range of industries beyond steel and aluminum. Countries like China and South Korea have already begun to prepare for potential retaliatory measures, which could further complicate international trade dynamics and lead to increased costs for consumers globally. 3. Geopolitical implications. The geopolitical ramifications of these tariffs may not be fully appreciated. Countries like Canada and Mexico, which are significant trade partners for the U.S., could experience economic strain as a result of these tariffs. The interconnectedness of the U.S. and Canadian economies, particularly in the steel sector, means that these tariffs could negatively impact jobs and economic stability in both nations. Observing how Canada and Mexico respond to these tariffs could provide insights into future trade relations and the possibility of new trade agreements or conflicts. 4. Impact on consumers and industries. While the immediate focus is often on the steel and aluminum sectors, the downstream effects on consumers and other industries can be overlooked. Sectors such as automotive and beverage manufacturers that rely on steel and aluminum are likely to face increased production costs, which could be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This inflationary pressure could erode consumer confidence and spending power, contributing to a broader economic slowdown. Analysts and economists often emphasize the importance of understanding these cascading effects when evaluating the overall impact of tariffs. 5. Historical context and precedent. The current tariff announcement should also be viewed in the context of Trump's previous trade policies. His earlier tariffs during his first term were often used as leverage in negotiating trade deals, which eventually led to the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement (USMCA). The quick reintroduction of tariffs at the start of his presidency this time may signal a more aggressive and uncompromising stance on trade. This may set a precedent for future administrations, shaping how tariffs are viewed as a policy tool in international trade negotiations. 6. Market reactions and volatility. The immediate market reactions, such as the rise in U.S. steel company stocks and the decline in South Korean steelmakers shares, reflect broader market volatility that can be exacerbated by sudden policy changes. Investors often respond not only to the current situation but also to the anticipated long-term effects of such policies. This volatility can lead to uncertainty in financial markets, affecting investment decisions and economic stability. 7. Environmental considerations. A less frequently discussed aspect of trade tariffs is their potential impact on environmental policies. The U.S. steel industry has faced scrutiny regarding its carbon footprint and environmental practices. Increased domestic production due to tariffs could lead to an uptick in emissions if U.S. steel companies do not adopt greener technologies. This raises questions about the alignment of trade policies with environmental goals, particularly as global attention shifts towards sustainability and climate change. Conclusion. In summary, while the implementation of a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum has garnered significant attention, various critical aspects of this policy and its implications may be overlooked. The long-term economic strategy versus short-term gains. Reciprocal tariff strategies. Geopolitical effects. Impacts on consumers. Historical context. Market volatility and environmental considerations all play significant roles in shaping the broader narrative of U.S. trade policy under Trump. Understanding these nuances is essential for grasping the potential consequences of such a bold move in the complex landscape of global trade dynamics. The announcement of a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum by President Donald Trump on February 10, 2025 marks a significant moment in U.S. trade policy with far-reaching implications. Here are the 4 most valuable points for in-depth analysis and discussion regarding this development. 1. Economic impact and sectoral responses. The immediate economic repercussions of the tariff are expected to be profound, particularly for sectors reliant on steel and aluminum, such as automotive and beverage industries. As costs rise due to tariffs, companies may pass these expenses on to consumers, leading to potential inflationary pressures. The stock market's initial reaction saw U.S. steel companies' shares surge, indicating investor optimism about domestic production increases, while shares of foreign steelmakers, notably South Korean companies, plummeted. This point underscores the interconnectedness of global trade and how tariffs can create winners and losers across different sectors. 2. Reciprocal tariffs and trade relations. Trump's announcement of potential reciprocal tariffs highlights a confrontational approach to trade policy wherein the U.S. would retaliate against countries imposing tariffs on American goods. This strategy aims to create a more balanced trade environment but risks escalating tensions with key trade partners, particularly Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. The potential for a tit-for-tat approach could lead to broader trade wars, affecting various industries and consumer prices. Analyzing this point involves understanding the strategic implications of such a policy and its potential to disrupt established trade relationships. 3. Global reactions and diplomatic challenges. The international community's response to Trump's tariffs has been one of concern, particularly from Canada and the EU, who rely heavily on exports to the U.S. The interconnected nature of the U.S. and Canadian economies means that these tariffs could result in job losses on both sides of the border. The EU's strong statement of no justification for the tariffs indicates a willingness to protect its interests, potentially leading to retaliatory measures. This aspect is crucial for discussing the geopolitical dimensions of trade policy and how domestic decisions can reshape international alliances and economic relationships. 4. Historical context and future implications. This tariff announcement can be viewed in the context of Trump's previous trade policies, where tariffs were employed as negotiation tools. The timing of this announcement, occurring earlier in his second term than in his first, suggests an intensified focus on trade protectionism. Analyzing this point involves exploring how historical precedents inform current policies and what this might mean for the future trajectory of U.S. trade strategy under Trump's administration. The long-term implications for global trade norms and the potential for shifting economic power dynamics are critical areas for further discussion. These points provide a comprehensive framework for analyzing the significance of Trump's tariff announcement and its potential ramifications on both domestic and global stages. 1. Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act was enacted during the Great Depression in the United States. It raised duties on hundreds of imported goods, including agricultural products, in an attempt to protect American industries from foreign competition. The legislation faced significant opposition and was met with retaliation from other countries, leading to a dramatic decrease in international trade and exacerbating the economic downturn. The act is widely regarded by economists as a contributing factor to the worsening of the Great Depression. 2. Section 301 Tariffs on China 2018. In response to China's trade practices, including intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers, the Trump administration imposed tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods in July 2018, with additional tariffs following on other imports. The tariffs aimed to pressure China into changing its trade behavior. This move triggered a trade war, with China retaliating with its own tariffs on U.S. goods, affecting various sectors and leading to increased costs for consumers and businesses.
The trade tensions created significant uncertainty in global markets. 3. Lautenberg Amendment 1989, named after Senator Frank Lautenberg.
This amendment imposed tariffs on certain imports from countries that were deemed to be engaging in human rights abuses or violations. The amendment was part of a broader foreign policy strategy to leverage trade policies for humanitarian purposes. While the direct economic impact was limited compared to other tariff cases, it represented a significant use of tariffs as a tool for promoting U.S. foreign policy objectives and illustrated the complex interplay between trade and international relations. The imposition of a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum by President Donald Trump on February 10, 2025 represents a pivotal moment in U.S. trade policy with far-reaching consequences for global trade dynamics. As the effects of this bold move unfold, several predictions can be made regarding its implications for the economy, international relations,
and domestic industries. Economic implications.
1. Increased costs for consumers. The tariffs will likely lead to higher prices for products that rely on steel and aluminum, such as automobiles and consumer goods. This increase in costs is expected to contribute to inflationary pressures in the U.S. economy as companies pass on the additional expenses to consumers.
2. Boost to domestic steel and aluminum industries. The tariffs are designed to protect and stimulate U.S. steel and aluminum industries.
In the short term, this may result in increased production and job creation within these sectors. However, the long-term sustainability of this growth will depend on the ability of these industries to innovate and compete effectively without reliance on tariffs.
3. Market volatility. Stock markets may continue to experience volatility as investors react to the changing landscape of international trade. U.S. steel companies may see initial gains,
but the broader market could suffer due to concerns over rising consumer prices and retaliatory measures from trading partners.
International relations.
1. Strained trade relationships. The tariffs are likely to exacerbate tensions between the U.S. and key trading partners, particularly Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. These countries may retaliate with their own tariffs, leading to a tit-for-tat trade war that could further disrupt global supply chains. 2. Impact on global trade agreements. The aggressive tariff strategy may complicate ongoing negotiations regarding trade agreements. Countries affected by the tariffs may push back against U.S. influence in international trade discussions, potentially leading to a reconfiguration of global trade alliances. 3. Reciprocal tariffs and escalation. Trump's mention of introducing reciprocal tariffs could lead to a cycle of retaliation that escalates trade tensions
if other countries impose their own tariffs in response. This could create an environment of uncertainty that hampers international trade and investment. Domestic industry responses.
1. Sector-specific challenges. While steel and aluminum producers may benefit, industries that rely on these materials, such as automotive manufacturing and beverage companies, could face significant challenges. Higher production costs may lead to reduced profit margins, layoffs, or shifts in production strategies. 2. Innovation and adaptation. In response to the new tariffs, U.S. companies may invest in innovation and seek alternative materials to mitigate the impact of increased costs. This could lead to advancements in technology and materials science, but may also require time and resources that could strain smaller businesses. 3. Political ramifications. The tariffs may have political consequences for Trump's administration, particularly if consumer prices rise significantly.
If voters perceive the tariffs as harmful to their economic well-being,
this could influence public opinion and future elections.
Long-term predictions.
1. Shift in supply chains. Companies may begin to reassess their global supply chains in light of the new tariffs. Some may look to source materials from countries not affected by the tariffs, leading to a potential realignment of global manufacturing and trade patterns.
2. Potential for future tariffs. The current tariffs could set a precedent for further trade restrictions on other sectors. If this approach proves politically advantageous for Trump, it may encourage the administration to pursue additional tariffs on other imports.
3. Economic resistance. Over time, the economy may adapt to the new tariff environment. While some sectors may struggle initially,
others may find ways to thrive in a protectionist landscape. This adaptation could shape the future of U.S. manufacturing and trade policy. Conclusion:
Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum marks a significant shift in U.S. trade policy that will have complex and interconnected effects on the economy, international relations, and domestic industries. The immediate consequences will likely include higher consumer prices and increased tensions with trading partners, while the long-term effects could reshape global trade dynamics and the landscape of American manufacturing. As the situation evolves, stakeholders will need to navigate the challenges and opportunities presented by this bold move.